we interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back. That still has a nice beat to it. Still seated twerking to bounce. New Year. And that song still has a vibe in 2025. Also, it's time for a new intro. I am in with a podcast change. I added the F.A.A.F.O to it. But I'm back with the same formula that has allowed me to be successful in the past. I've set realistic intention. I plan on being present and following through, but I still intend to remain petty and hold grudges. Not all intentions need to be positive. Also, I will be unengaged and unbothered by people and things in my life that do not serve me. That means parasitic people, unsolicited judgments, biased newspapers, and mainstream banks. I will not apologize for maintaining my mental peace. Happy and unbothered and at peace because I'm at unbothered. All day, every day, being unbothered is my way. Join me.
Obama, call him president, he's the next new president. Yeah, senator from Illinois. Yeah, his criteria compared to John McCain isn't fair, cause he's BLAC, so the eyes are on he. Through his pencil, he write legislation with the country on his mind, and he don't coach, cause he ain't got time every second, minute, hour. KKK wanna devour, he got guards ready.
Well, we started out the month where Trump and Muskrat were slapboxing in the news. One of them got mad because he played in his face, and who got the biggest balls, I don't know. Yours hang down lower, I don't know. I help you cheat in this last election. Wait, what? Now you're saying too much. Why is the Jeffrey Epstein files still repressed a couple of years after his death? Because a sitting president, convicted felon, is in said files. So, and then we got ICE raids starting in earnest, or starting back up. I don't think they ever really went away. It just wasn't reported in the media. And then people have taken to the streets, shaking their signs. Then we get, why are y'all not out there? Because I ain't trying to, number one, I got bad knees. I ain't doing all that. And I'm going to get arrested probably more easier than Karen's, Katie, and Kirsten. So no, I ain't going out there. But I will be annoying and pettily post for Obama Appreciation Day, and we'll even support No Kings demonstrations that blew up all over the country. Yes, I have thoroughly enjoyed Gavin Newsom saying he's about that life. How are you going to arrest somebody? And even the LAPD was like, yo, you send in the military in, we got this. And if they say they got this, the most unionized, albeit maybe slightly corrupt, police force in this country, if they say they got it, they probably do got it. And it wasn't like they had much to protect, because mostly what was going on about those ICE raids was meemaws out there with flip-flops yelling at the National Guard because they ain't had no business out there. They were ill prepared. And what was the mission? The mission was to incite violence. and incite a riot, so then you can use excessive force to put it down, because you don't want people that voted for you, and because you were going to do exactly and to illegally kick people out of this country without due process. That's what you still wanted to go on. And then you wanted to use the military to, in a police capacity, when there is no reason to. Because there are no riots. You protecting 2 courthouses, federal courthouses in LA County? No. What you were trying to do was a smokescreen for your own shenanigans. Your own shenanigans, meaning to deflect from y'all letting Israel do some dumb shit in the Middle East, where everybody seems to be activating. India launching strikes against Pakistan. Y'all forgot about that. Y'all forgot about the genocide taking place in Gaza right now. Y'all talking about Russia gearing up for not probably just an offensive from Ukraine, and they should have never been there in the first place, but an offensive against the rest of Europe. This is what y'all are trying to deflect from. You're trying to deflect from a failed businessman trying to crash the market and the dollar for your own nefarious means. Y'all trying to keep people away from a hand recount, because how can you have many registered voters in a county in New York and none of their votes were counted? There were 0 votes for a clearly blue area. Where did those votes go? What happened to the machines? Did somebody tamper with those machines? Because that's what it's looking like now. All of this chaos and subterfuge is about confusion and just that subterfuge. But seems like they are waking up from some type of Pollyanna slumber, and they're saying, you know what? We are going to become more aware and strategic in our outrage, because that's what I am. I can't get distracted by all of these crazy things. I'm not going to get distracted I can't keep distracted by the shenanigans that are going on in the White House and in Israel and in Russia, because the bigger picture is something is going on. There are many things that I can't control, but I'm going to be about my business and the things that I have to be more cognizant of that I can control. Number one, my own mental health, being about that life, about what makes me happy, and cutting out those things that don't. I got to be about health. That's why maintaining a healthier lifestyle, anti-inflammatory, fresh greens that I grow, because there are all these recall food contaminated with salmonella and the likes. Yeah, that's what I'm about in the next stage of my life. Reading as many cool books as I can. Watching my the biggest thing I did today was sit in my hot tub and watch the Beatbot do its thing. That's what I'm about these days. And protecting my peace. This other stuff, if I don't want to participate, I'm not participating. There's no your social awareness and what you're willing to do and what signs you're willing to carry. I'm not about that life, because I said my knees hurt. So no, but I will create reels and run the pockets of these little hand stupid people that I didn't elect, that I didn't vote for. Elected officials being petty and stupid and trying to destroy democracy. But there are ways that I can also protect in my own way And other than that, just keep it pushing and keep living. That's all we can do.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. So take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Ways to know and ways to grow, a 10-fro rainbow. I can be anything. So take a look, it's in a book, a 10-fro rainbow. A 10-fro rainbow. A 10-fro rainbow.
This past week, it seems like it's become full circle with Matriarch. She said a line in the chapter that I'm listening to now about stepping into your power and then looking like you belong there. That's what it looks like with Tiana in her shop, the sacred shop, and they recounted a period where Tiana Taylor actually was in the same dance troupe or actually did choreography to teach Beyonce and Destiny's Child hip-hop dancing. Can you imagine that? And now this full circle where now Tiana is living her best life. Beyonce is there, and now she's getting her hair laid in the same shop that supported Beyonce's hairography and the Houston community, African-American community, over 30 years ago, 3 decades ago. I think that is actually 4 decades ago, because Beyonce was only about 6 or 7 when her mom opened up her original shop. So this past week has been so much with the BET Awards, the fashion, and just celebrating us. And Tiana Taylor, I don't know how soon prior to or after that she showed up at Sacred Salon and recorded that spot. And I hope her spot. I'm not going to record it because I don't want any parts of copyright infringement. But you can actually navigate to the Sacred Salon YouTube channel and check it out. And then it's so wild that I saw that, and I'm on the part of Matriarch that Miss Tina talks about her time where she was starting her salon, Headliners, back when Beyonce was just a second grader and Solange was just basically a toddler, or basically right before she was a toddler. She had just had Solange. And it seems, as always, how much that she gave of herself was to be a great wife, even when Matthew Knowles was cheating on her multiple times. And I think the last straw may have been a couple of surprise babies, but I digress. So there is a part of her that she always wanted, and she was, her seems like her focus in life was to make her children, develop strong children. You nurture their light and their talent. You don't let anybody take their spark away from them. Trying to do pretty much the opposite of how her mother treated her. And it could be that you disagree with your parents' rearing techniques or their lack of even sometimes accountability, but you just do what you can to rectify, do your own work to to help heal yourself, as well as don't make those same mistakes and on your own kids. And how she saw the talent really, really early in Beyonce, who was she was as talented as she was extremely, extremely shy. And Solange, for all of her outgoingness, she was also showed at really early age, 4 years old, that she also had an artistic bent. And as a parent, even though he was a crap husband, it seems to me that both of the Knowles knew and were nurtured the extraordinary talent of both of their daughters, utilizing the availability of what was Black culture in Houston at that time, at like the Madonna Center, getting them dance lessons, singing lessons, voice lessons, participating in pageants, way before toddlers and tiaras, just so that they could showcase Beyonce's talent. It was a remarkable upbringing, and it explains a lot of not only who both Beyonce and Solange are, about who Miss Tina was and her part. Her salon became an epicenter of the community for many people to get their start as far as business and creativity. How she nurtured her cousin after his partner died of male breast cancer, of all things. And that's where I was today years old, not knowing that, like most horrible diseases, African American males in this country have a higher rate of breast cancer than white men. And usually by the time it's found, it usually is an aggressive form and really resistant to treatment. So after his partner, Peanut, died a year after his diagnosis, but I'm sure it was probably widely metastatic at the time of diagnoses, due to access and also his gay lifestyle in the 80s. They're probably looking for everything not to treat him, unfortunately. Even though there's a cancer center right down in Houston, and MD Anderson is right down in Texas, and I'm sure that access to the best care at that time was not open to gay Black men, let alone to anyone straight in the African American community, unfortunately. But they did what they did, didn't hold anything against him, and his talent was utilized in making of Beyonce's costumes and probably everybody in the groups that she was in. Amazing. Her hair was on point, and the beginning products as Miss Tina created as a hair mixologist in headliners, I'm sure contributed to the sacred hair and beauty products that's available that just came online, and it's massive success in the last couple of years. So amazing work. Every time you think you know something about the Knowles and Miss Tina and Beyonce and her sister, you learn more. It's like a layer approach to a fascinating family, and I'm here for it.
We're a messy bunch, the shady bunch, the shady bunch. I hope for checks is worth being part of the shady bunch.
Why is it sad that a lot of international news reads like a horrible reality TV show? And I say this, and I say this with all seriousness. Dear Jesus, your cousin and them are over here out here tripping. Iran leadership needs to negotiate about what? This is an Esau and Ishmael-ish on some supernatural get back that stretches BC. And I say this, again, with all seriousness. We ain't feeling. The world don't need to catch these spiritual strays. We don't need to capture the unhingedness of an entire nation that is nuke ready, that will blow off its nose in spite of the rest of the world's face because of their hatred from a biblical level. Yes, Sarah messed up and tried to do God's work. And this is what you get. You get generations and nations of people against each other for absolutely no reason. Why are y'all over there killing the Muslims in Gaza for no reason, trying to starve them out of their land? They were in Palestine before Israel got back during World War II. We don't forget that. We don't forget that y'all were the God's chosen people, but y'all also seem to forget you serve a vengeful God. And the God that I know that y'all serve, he don't like ugly. Y'all need to basically pull up your Torah and do a deep dive or at least the secular government, because y'all are doing something that's so contrary to the word of the Torah, to the word of the biblical God that I know. Y'all need to get it straight, because this is definitely not his will. This is the opposite of his will. Further, the Diddy trial in itself is just triggering. I had to stop listening to the play-by-play by Dimitri L. Lucas, and she does a good job. But I like the summation that I receive on ABC Live, and I'm going to continue to watch that. I don't need to know a play-by-play. I think it's amusing that Kanye shows up to the Diddy trial and wasn't on the list, so he leaves. It's just, he just doing some stunting on a Ye level and how far both of them have fallen. They came up at the same time. Same trajectory. Dated a bunch of people and wild out. And now Kanye off meds, recreated Kim Kardashian, and he's going to be the next one we're going to be hearing about. I'm not so sure if it's going to be on the same level of this depravity, but it's probably going to be just as crazy. And the wheels have basically rolled off. They've come off, and y'all are basically rolling on rims at this point, and it's all we see is sparks. What I am just confused about is, at one point, Sean Combs and all of his business was sitting over on $500 million, and probably evaluation of all of his accomplishments together was well over $1 billion. However, he basically pissed it away because he wanted to be, in his own mind, at all times, this big dog, wanted to be depraved, but he required more and more power and meanness to get the kind of control, to get the kind of reaction he needed, when all he had to do was sober up, and he could have felt all the things anew, all of his senses anew, and just basically lived out his rich man's life. But no, what we see now is someone that seems to be just as addicted to the brutality and the power and the mayhem, more so than he was addicted to anything else. Everything had to be on 20. And the level of depravity and meanness, I don't need to listen to. I just need to listen to the cliff notes and then just be able to process it all and to know that I'm hopeful that that chapter has come to an end. But I make no mistake, there are a lot of people out here that have taken notes from the Sean Diddy Combs brutality in hip hop and are still doing their dirt. He didn't stop doing the dirt until he basically was arrested in 2024, a very few short months ago. So do I believe that some of the same crazy issues going on still on the DL? Yes. People may have just gone further underground because this level of craziness just doesn't go away that easily, I don't believe. And it's still triggering that people would want to go into hip hop and that are still survivors, and how many more people have stories or similar stories to tell that are even worse than what we're seeing play out in the media in this trial. I can wait, and I'm hoping. I think we're just completed week 5, and they're saying this may drag on for up to 7 to 8 weeks. Yeah, I'm good. And I'm good with just getting the Cliff Note version from ABC News. But if you really want a line-by-line, play-by-play, Demetria Lucas and other podcasts are doing that. I just can't listen to it because it's just triggering. And it's all about mental health and physical health. Low anti-inflammatory diets and low drama personal experiences. That's where I am. So I have not seen anybody else crash out on Real Housewives ever since Brittany did not show up and record her first season. How you gonna not show up at the reunion and then you sue the network? It was definitely in making it plain that, number one, you're not coming back, and number two, you got a problem. She's been in trouble, and from what I understand, and this is watching the emergency episode of Carlos King's, that they get the last several episodes and watch before they go into the reunion. And I don't know if she has been planning this, but as I rewatch the entire season, again, I'm realizing very subtle things. She, even before Kenya was dismissed from the show, it appears that she basically played herself. It looks like she got either into her own head or into those comments on social media. And just like this last episode, when Portia was trying to give her a bone, and the mix-up about who she really is, there was always this issue with her being over-sexualized and depicted in those photos that Kenya displayed at her grand opening, and how she and her husband, and she had a conversation with her mom about those photos. So those photos, even if she tried to scrub them from the internet, and I don't know how that's even possible, I've seen them remove. I tried to look up a volatility quotient for like a financial calculator online. Come to find out, the information was made available like about 4 or 5 years ago. So now they're trying to repackage it and charge people like a grip. And everywhere that I went, all of those links were now invalid. So, but somebody has access to those links. The internet be internet, and stuff that's out there is just out there. So a lot of the things, she knew those images were available. So how now you're going to say that wasn't even you? And that was what predicated one of the biggest OGs on housewife history to be dismissed. Girl, bye. And Kenya, I'm thinking she got that information not only from Hood reporting, but also she said she actually had a private investigator. I think Britt is lying. Britt doesn't know who she is. Britt played herself. And she played a role, and it played her, and she just could not figure out who she was and how she was going to be on the show. She basically thought that everything was a flex. And if it's not, even if your first season is not up to the other housewives, ask Nene Leakes about this. That's why I think when these new school girls, they need somebody to basically lead them through the promised land. That's why it's kind of sad that Phaedra didn't come back until the end. There appears to be an improved Phaedra that has taken a cue why she got and left the lie that was heard around the world season 9. She had to basically go back and rebuild, was on Married to Medicine for 2 useless seasons. And she accused them of being mean girls. But I think she was rightfully so, because it appears that not the Real Housewife, the Married to Medicine cast, except for Quad Webb, they're on some I have to look good and I have a persona, but at the same time, I will backbite and just as mean and as elitist as any housewife or anybody on Love and Hip Hop, unfortunately. And they think they're so much better than, but they're just the same and just as trashy as the other cast members from those before mentioned show. And you better recognize you exist because Real Housewives of Atlanta exists. So you don't get it twisted, girl. And stop, again, being all stuck up and high and mighty when you're no better than those castmates. Y'all fronting just like some of the Real Housewives. Just saying. So I also think that if she came on as kind of like a friend of the show, like Claudia Jordan, when her and that former crackhead girl, Deneen, I think she played Deneen on one of Tyler Perry's sitcoms, they basically were showing their life. We showed her at work on the Ricky Smiley show. We saw her doing stuff with Kenya Moore. We saw Deneen showcasing her song down in Puerto Rico. And then what sealed it is Claudia Jordan actually reading Nene Leakes to filth. And Nene then Leakes actually said, yeah, she actually has to be a full-time peach holder. She only lasted one season because she got other opportunities, and she was good, and she just couldn't take the fakery and couldn't take the backbiting and the darkness. But I wish she had stayed. And we've seen her come back, and she was actually at Kenya's grand opening before all of the crap went down. in scenes that weren't even shown on TV. We saw some of the outtakes. So, and then I think it goes to show there were like instances like we get to still see Kenya in the moment in Life Twirls on her YouTube show. And I thought it was really well produced. Let's just talk about the fashion. Let's just talk about how pretty her salon is. Let's just talk that her face was beat to the gods. One of the things that stood out is her dream cast were former Real Housewife of Atlanta. I'm going to have to rewatch it. And that's the other thing. I'll rewatch her and Shamia's show because I don't believe Cynthia Bailey was included in the dream cast of Real Housewives of Atlanta. Claudia Jordan was, and Claudia said she only talks to Kenya like every year and a half, but when they talk, they basically download each other. They seem to be actually friends on and off the screen. And they're not like it was an alliance like some of these Real Housewives are. I see Shamia and her best friend show. How real it is. I really like that the trans female Shan, who's just a real Atlanta baddie, and how she was actually living as a female for years before she had transitioned, had married an NFL star and everything. She had been married twice. And the second, and she can't really talk about the first one because there's a gag order. She was married to that man for some years and he didn't know for years that she was trans, which I think is crazy to me. But her story is interesting enough, and how her second marriage was she was in an abusive relationship for years. And I didn't know she was actually a part of Kenya's PSA for domestic violence. Had no idea. But her story is dope. And why wasn't she on the show, or at least as a friend of? I believe Kelly and Angela are holding their own, and Kelly's hilarious. And Angela is hilarious, how she got Britt all the way together. And I think they clocked that tea, how she's not a girl's girl. And she doesn't have these instances off camera, even between the shows that they are, when the episodes actually premiere. We haven't really seen Britt interact with any of the cast outside of recording of the show. I don't know if that was by design, or did she really not think that the viewing audience was not going to clock of the disingenuity of her relationships with these people? Because if she actually did have and cultivated a relationship with these people, it wouldn't been like, she wouldn't have crashed out with Kenya. Because and she even said, my good best friend, girlfriend, introduced me to Kelly, or I met so-and-so. Somebody would have gotten her together. She wouldn't have been so, always on 10, because everything was a slight to her. And the thing that she kept going back to is, oh, they hate me because I'm pretty. No, they don't. All of these women on the set are pretty. Even down to Angela Oakley's 1990s nose, which she actually got fixed at some point during the season. It appears all of them had some type of work. Portia admits to having a whole other body. Shamia admits to having her breasts done because they were dragging the floor. Phaedra has come up there with a whole other face, looking like one of her oldest sons with a blonde wig on. So, girl, that's not it. They basically clocked it because they just don't know you. They don't know you outside of the fashion and outside of the work that you have had. And how are you going to show up to somebody and support someone when you're always on 10 and just so abrasive and defensive all the time at any little slight? And it's not even a slight. You actually are overreacting to a bunch of nothing. But what I will clock is she could never have recovered, because Angela clocked the shade and duplicity of Portia Williams. I call her P. Willie. But if she had had someone to guide her, if she had cultivated real relationships beyond when they were in the camera, and we could actually see what I've seen in the last few episodes, and you can't really get that in 40 minutes. You know, how the closeness and the genuine relationship between Shamia Morton and Kelly is blossoming, and watching them interact on the YouTube channel and seeing some of their posts on radio shows and on Instagram. They are doing beyond what we see on the cameras, beyond editing, because a lot of that stuff is not edited and produced the same. But it looks really good and it's genuine, and those are the real stories. What I do see, and again, the internet be interneting, Britt Eady's insurance business folded a year prior to her taping. We only saw her janky loungewear launch. It was even worse than She by Sheree, a fashion with no fashion. Evidently, something is going on with Dwight. His health is failing. So, again, what the realness and the interaction with her family and stuff, if it wasn't so surface, and it wasn't just because she's having an issue with these girls because they think I'm pretty. No, they have clocked that you're fake and that you are only out for Brit, and they don't know what is actually real. They see you pull up in a car lot and just rev up a Rolls Royce, but they don't see you drive off with it. And the Rolls Royce that you were flexing in is not the same one that you pulled up at Shamia's house with. And then you only show up at Shamia's house with $75 versus for $75 worth of toiletries, and you only donated $250 when they're trying to make a difference in a whole population that was affected by a hurricane. Girl, look, you did it to yourself. Sorry. And they clocked it, and they called you out on it. So don't flex and then again get defensive when you're called out on your shortcomings. Why don't you just change and do better? Why didn't you just, and then don't lie, because they're going to clock that too. Why don't you just do better and not get defensive? Why don't you just recognize that was really crude and silly and stupid what I did? So that's why I'm going to run you another check. They would accept that. But you got to take some accountability for your shortcoming and not just come off as defensive and crazy all the time. Also, Drew, I saw this in an earlier episode. Drew actually has a screensaver of herself on her phone. And I'm very interested in seeing why he was so reckless and wanted to unseal the file. What was actually going on with her? Was it on some tit for tat that he cheated and then she cheated? Or there was something else dirty? because what he's releasing now, he's being a real petty Betty, and he's looking kind of weak and silly. He also hated Ty because even though Ty is obviously a stud lesbian, but women can actually be tight and have no sex, and it's not sexual at all. And he can't understand that. Also, Ty was able to give his own wife something that he withheld. And he also know that Ty ain't no punk and she would probably whip his ass. You just need to control your own dick. And yes, you are a narcissist. But what I can say is even after the probing Carlos King interview on his channel, I don't know. It just seems like Drew is still performing from what I see on the show. And also she basically needs to take whoever was her stylist for the season with her at all times, because like Phaedra says, she's coming in with her Temu fashions and looking like Bam Bam or Pebbles. And she obviously is not listening to her team all of the time because some of the fashion looks like from yesteryear and she looks kind of crazy. But I'm glad she's getting her bag. I'm glad she's out here. Her and Claudia Jordan are going to be in a new movie at the end of the summer called Run. But I don't know. I want to root for her, but she makes it really difficult with her performances. Just saying. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happier you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of F.A.A.F.O has a fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all have a great new year. What, y'all? What?